Welcome guys. In this video, we are talking about that what is the amount of risk you should be using for each position and how can you set the positions to break even and when you should set the positions to break even. So first of all, what is the risk you should be using for each setup? We have four types of setups. The 50-minute reversal coming down into the 71 level in a bullish example that you see in front of you. Second is the original 4-hour entry. Third is the confirmation entry of the 4-hour 71 level. And the fourth is the continuation flow of the 4-hour bullish higher time frame trend. So the first question, what is the risk you should be using for the 4-hour entry? Because that is the base of the overall concepts. What I suggest you to use is 0.5% to 1%. Personally, I'm going to risk 1% of my capital on these 4-hour trade ideas. If you prefer lower, use lower, but I don't suggest you to go above 1% since we are going to use other entries as well on the 50-minute time frame and you don't want to over leverage yourself. Second, the amount of risk should be used at the confirmation entry. What I suggest you to do is to use the same amount of risk for a confirmation entry as you have used for the 4-hour original entry. The idea of using the same amount of risk is basically the same as using an order block entry, because as I told you, we are not going to use the order block entries anymore. Order blocks are no direct limit areas anymore. We are replacing the order blocks with the confirmation and the continuation trades. So you should be using the same amount of risk for a confirmation trade as you have used on the 4-hour original idea. So if you used 1% of your capital right here on the 71 level for the 4-hour idea, I suggest you to use the same for the 50-minute confirmation. If you have used 0.5% here, I suggest you to use 0.5% here again. Obviously, this can differ for each individual. You can decide that what risk you want to use, but this is what I'm suggesting for you to use. You can lower this if it seems way too high for you. You can only use half risk on each of the setups. It's really up to you. This is only a suggestion. I can't tell you what risk you should be using on your account. And now the third is the continuation trade. What I suggest for a continuation trade is half of the original risk that you have used on the 4-hour and on the confirmation. So if you have used 1% on the 4-hour, 4-hour directly and 1% on the confirmation, I suggest you to use 0.5% right here on the continuation entry. Obviously, this can differ for each individual once again. You can use higher risk. You can use your risk up to 1% if you are confident enough in a setup. You can use higher risk if you are in a nice, clean, bullish trend on the 4-hour time frame, creating series of higher highs, higher lows for a really long time, or obviously the counter opposite, bearish trend. In a ranging market, I do not suggest you to use over 0.5% of what you originally used for a setup right here. And finally is the reversal trade. Once I told you reversal trades are the most trickiest setups and has the highest amount of chance to hit the TP. So for the reversal setup, I would suggest you to use the risk of half of the risk of what you originally risk on the 4-hour setup. So if you're using 1% on the 4-hour setup, I suggest you to only use 0.5% right here. Once again, this can differ for each individual. These are just suggestions. I can't tell you the risk that you should use fixed for each setup because I'm not a licensed financial advisor and this is something I cannot recommend legally, but this is just a suggestion that what you should use. But once again, this can differ for each individual based on the individual's backtesting and live trading results. So now let's just talk about that. How can you set the trades to break even and when you should set the trades to break even? First of all, you are entering into the 4-hour trade. Let's just say that you are entering in this 4-hour trade idea, right? Price swept out the low point, broke the high point here and here. You pull the Fibonacci from the low to the high point. Clean. You enter on the 4-hour 71 level right here. The base idea of this 4-hour entry is to not managing it. First of all, we are not going to manage this whole entry. We are just going to let it run. We don't do management. Some cases we will do. I'm working on another management method, another management model that might be released later in the future. But for now, we are only taking a look at the 71 level 4-hour example, only entering here and leaving the trade for TP or stop loss. These are the two only solutions we are going to use for now. Now about the confirmation entry and the cancellation entries. What I suggest you to do here is that when you enter in the confirmation trade, the safest and most ideal point to set the trade to break even is when price reaches the zero level or around the zero level. If price aggressively rejects on, for example, top right here on the zero level, it rejects on this top or on the supply found on this top, and it aggressively rejects, it is reasonable to set it to break even and not to wait for a break. But when it breaks, it's once again reasonable to set it to break even. Second, when you should set it to break even, or when it's recommended to set it to break even, when price forms another continuation entry, and if you did not set it to break even because you decided that you can decide for yourself when you want to set it to break even, or you don't want to set it to break even at all, what it's suggested to do for you is when you don't set it to break even, the original confirmation entry, you just simply let it run without setting it to break even. When I suggest you to absolutely set it to break even without thinking about it is when you enter in another continuation setup. So when you enter in another continuation setup and your trade is still running here on the confirmation, you should set it to break even. This is not a choice. You should set it to break even. And about the reversals, continuation, same principles apply for the continuations as for the confirmation. So when price reaches the zero level and it aggressively rejects somewhere around there on an order block, really strong rejection comes back down to your entry area, it is reasonable to set it to break even. And now about the reversal trades. For the reversal trades, I couldn't really draw something here, so I'm going to draw it individually with an arrow right here. When price retraces after sweeping out a high point and then creates the breakout structure, so forms the original reversal entry. Let's just say that this is a protected high point. You enter on the 71 level. You originally TP out on the zero level, right? So this is the original TP. You don't let it run. You don't let it run down to the 0.27. No, you originally TP out right here on the zero level, and that is the final TP. So how you should set it to break even, or how can you manage this trade, is by monitoring price action, is by taking a look at price action. And let's just say when price is around 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio profit, it is reasonable and is suggested to set it to break even. And once again, monitoring can help a lot. So when you enter in a trade like this and you see the candles coming down and those candles pressure starts to slow down and then it suddenly reverses with higher volume into your stop loss direction, it is, once again, suggested and reasonable to set it to break even. But once again, this is the unsafest type of entry with the lowest win ratio. So this should be managed strictly. The other trades, the 4-hour one, the confirmation and the cancellation, when you have a nice clean bullish or bearish market structure, do not really require that strict management. So you can choose here not to set the trades to break even at all. You can let everything run up to TP or down to stop loss without setting it to break even. All these you've seen in this video are just suggestions that what you can make and what I am personally suggesting you to do. Once again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Therefore, I cannot tell you exactly what you should do with your money. These are suggestions. And now, this is the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching.